There's one doctor that actually said, there's no hope for you because you're never gonna get better. My true belief for that decade was, if I don't have me, no one does. Selling the few belongings that I had, I hung myself. When I was saved, I remember thinking, okay, somebody wants me alive. I had my arms open and my eyes closed, and I was just smiling and laughing, and Jesus was there with me, and the wind was in my hair, and it was sunny, and there was just clear water, clear sky. And I just felt, he's there. He has me, everything's gonna be okay. I'm Angelica Gonzalez, and I was born here in Dallas, Texas. I was raised here in a solid Catholic home. I am the oldest of 7. I have 6 younger brothers. We were raised in a really good, loving, solid home. Just by looking at the pictures from my first communion, I still had that like purity that, you know, I was untouched by the world. At age 8, my brothers had a lot of health issues, and so we were constantly getting towed back and forth to doctor's offices. And so one day we went to a doctor's office, and there was an unknown doctor, and I was molested. Not soon after that, there was a family friend that was coming around quite a bit, and they exposed me to pornography and some other sexual acts, and everything about, you know, being a child just being taken away from me really, really quickly. And then because of everything that I was exposed to, I needed some sort of way to cope with all of the pain, and that family friend was using self-harm. And I remember asking the person when I saw them burning their arm with an eraser, why? And they were like, oh, it just makes me feel better. And I was like, I want to feel better. And so I decided, well, let me try it, but with a knife. And so I started cutting my arms and eventually my legs. That's really where I started questioning, where I knew God is real, but if he's such a loving God, where is he through all of this? That was where I started developing the I'm alone, I'm abandoned. And I really just accepted that as part of my identity really early on. 16, I was just joining Life Teen, and I really do believe that that helped me through it. I mean, even with all of the pain, and yes, I was self-harming and feeling empty and all of these things, but there was something about going to Life Teen on Sunday, just knowing my cup was getting even just a little bit filled, that helped kind of keep me grounded during that time. And so yeah, 16, I ended up meeting somebody through a school that I went to, and he was much older, and he took advantage of me. And then once again, it was, I'm alone, I'm abandoned. And so I just started cutting more and started disassociating, and really just kind of kept myself into my room constantly. I shut everybody out. I went through a pretty bad episode of depression, and so my mom ended up finding cuts on my arms, and so she took me to a psychiatrist. They put me on antidepressants, and then that sent me into a manic stage, which led me to my diagnosis of bipolar disorder. I lived with that diagnosis and that as part of my identity for almost 16 years. And so I was on some pretty heavy medications on and off, all sorts of different kinds. There was one doctor that actually said, there's no hope for you. You might as well check yourself into a hospital and live there because you're never going to get better. I really considered myself as a hopeless case when it came to my mental health. I was pretty much done. It was kind of like that year anniversary. You know, they say that the body keeps the score, right? That's a book on trauma. And it was just kind of remembering what happened to me at 16. And so around that time in the fall, I decided to try to take my life by overdosing. I mean, God just reached his hand in there and saved me, and I ended up getting sick and, you know, obviously getting rid of all the medication that I took. And so that was the first of many attempts there. Yeah, at 18, I had my first serious boyfriend, and we ended up getting pregnant within about 6 months of dating. And then since we were both Catholic, we were like, okay, we're gonna get married. We got married within the year, and then within the next year, we were pregnant with our second, and we were so young. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how to be parents or honestly be husband and wives to each other. So the marriage just turned really ugly really quickly. I was very mentally unstable at the time, and in 2014, we decided to sign over the rights to the children to our parents. Our families were separated, so we agreed no visitation for the time being. We did agree on family counseling, but that didn't take place until later on. So I was separated from my family for a couple years. And so that left me homeless. And so I lived out of my car for 3 months, and then I moved into a storage unit for the next 9 months after that. And the owner was nice enough to let me stay when I told her a little bit about my story, but that's where I spent the next year. I left God behind. I don't think I ever stopped believing he was there, but it was just kind of like, I'm gonna ignore you and I'm gonna do my own thing, because my true belief for that decade was, if I don't have me, no one does. So I really tried to take things into my own hands. Because of that, I fell into a very deep depression, and that was my second suicide attempt. Yeah, so in 2015, I met a guy, and I ended up in another pretty bad relationship. He was an abusive alcoholic. My name is so long, people kind of stutter with it and everything, and I always had issues people pronouncing my name. One night, his mom just suggested, like, hey, do you want to go by anything shorter, like Angie or Angel? And I loved Angel, and it just kind of stuck. Because of that, but then also because of the fact that I left behind my family and I left behind my faith, and I felt like I changed as a person, I was like, I'm gonna take on this new identity. And so Angel became who I was, and I actually got very angry when people called me Angelica. That was not who I was anymore, and so I took on this brand new identity. I ended up in my own little apartment in Dallas because things with the other guy had finally ended, and I was just in a really dark place. I think part of it was the ending of the relationship, even though it was so abusive and toxic. And so I ended up selling the few belongings that I had, and I hung myself. By the grace of God, the one friend that I had at the time showed up unannounced, and my door happened to be unlocked. And he came in and he saved my life. When I was saved, I remember thinking, okay, somebody wants me alive. And I felt like there was no one in my life that wanted me alive, and so I had a feeling it was God. It was just one of those things where it was like, but why does he want me alive? If, you know, because I felt like such a mess up. I felt like such a letdown at the time. But I do remember questioning, all right, maybe he is up there, maybe he is looking out for me. And it was just kind of a one and done, like just that single thought, and then I just left it alone and put it back down and left it for a while, but that definitely sparked a little bit of maybe he is up there. I met a woman that I worked with, and I don't know, it was an instant connection, and I ended up establishing a relationship with her, and it was an on and off, very heavy and painful relationship. Within those 4 years, I was hospitalized for my mental health 3 times. My self-harm increased to pretty much daily. And early May 2023, I decided to completely cut ties with the woman officially. And so there was this unattachment process that I had to go through, and it just put me in this rock bottom place where I just felt empty and alone and depressed because I felt like I had lost like this part of me for some reason. I didn't want to be alone that night because I didn't want to do anything stupid and make a wrong decision, since I had passed with suicide ideations. So I decided to go over to my parents the night of May 31st, 2023. When I first got to the house, I just told my parents I didn't want to be alone tonight. I'm not in a good place. I honestly am thinking about putting myself back into the hospital. That would have been the 4th time that I admitted myself into the psychiatric unit. And my mom just brought up the fact that they were going to this Pentecost hour. She asked me if I wanted to go, and I said, okay, I have nothing to lose at this point, so sure. And so I went with them. I was really nervous, and my mom told me, don't worry, you'll blend right in. And we show up and there's like 10 people. And I was like, Mom, what did you do? What did you bring me to? And she said, don't worry, you'll be fine. And so we walk in, and one of her friends came up to us, and the friend was like, I'm so-and-so, what's your name? And I just froze, and I had no idea what to say. She just kind of looked at me, and then I turned to my mom and I said, well, my mom calls me Angelica, but other people call me Angel. And she said, okay, well, what do you prefer to be called? And that was the first time that I had no answer. I genuinely had no idea what to say or think or feel. She said, well, maybe you should just pray on that. And it was just so unusual for me because I was always adamant about being called Angel. And that was the first night where I realized I had no idea who I was at that point. I had no idea. So that kind of started the wheels to turn a little bit. So I just went to my chair and I sat down, and they started just praising. And I watched these people praise and worship and dance around with such a freedom that I thought I could never, ever have. Then we broke up into groups to pray over each other, and everybody separated except for me and my mom. And my mom just turned to me and she said, can I pray over you? And I said, sure. And so she laid both of her hands on my shoulders and just started praying, and it was instant tears, and I just broke. I had my eyes closed and I could feel my dad's hands on my other shoulder, and they were both praying over me for what felt like forever and felt like not any time at all. I had my eyes closed and I could see me and Jesus on this sailboat. I had my arms open and my eyes closed, and I was just smiling and laughing, and Jesus was there with me, and the wind was in my hair, and it was sunny, and it was just clear water, clear sky. And I just felt he's there. He has me, everything's gonna be okay. And I just heard him say, I'm about to ask you to do something for me. And my response was, well, I'm getting up at 6 in the morning for work, so I'm not quite sure what you want me to do. And he said, I'm about to give you a big burst of energy. You're going to go home and clear your apartment. And that is exactly what happened. I came home and I put a trash bag, and I just started pulling all of these things that were just pieces of my past or contribution to my addictions. So knives, drugs, everything went in the bag. The next morning, I got up for work, and I dropped 2 of the trash bags off to the dumpster and then 3 off to the donation center. And I got to work and I immediately started feeling sick. And it was like a detox process, like flu-like, chills, fever, nausea, just all of these different things that it was like I was having withdrawals from sin. And so I contacted my boss and I said, hey, I have to leave. And he showed up and let me go home early. I came here, I slept for a good 4 hours, and then I woke up feeling pretty refreshed actually, and then I decided to go to my parents. That's when my dad asked me for the 100th time, do you want to watch The Chosen? Just episode 1, just watch episode 1 with me. And I said, okay. And so we watched season 1, episode 1, Mary Magdalene, and that's when I heard Isaiah 43:1. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. And I realized that God was calling me home. He was calling me by my name, and he wanted me to take my name back. So, yep. I am Angelica, daughter of the King. I have very faithful parents, praise God. I have very good parents. I always tell them, you're the reason I came back. You left that, you had that solid foundation. There's been a lot of healing with the relationship with me and my parents. My parents were genuinely doing the best that they could throughout everything. I'm so close to my girls now. I'm there at least once a week. They're still with my parents. They're with my parents Monday through Friday, and then they're with his parents over the weekend. It's amazing how our families have all come together, and we're all really close, and their dad is involved as well. And it's so beautiful to see that they're just so loved. They're surrounded by this community that just loves them, and they're two of the happiest girls. I actually just celebrated 300 days of sobriety from self-harm, which is the longest I've ever lasted. And I'm just so grateful, because that was something that I never thought I was gonna be able to kick, because that was something that I did since I was 8 years old. 6 months ago, after working with my doctor for the last 1.5 years, since my conversion, she agreed to just drop and take me, wean me off the medication and just drop the diagnosis. And it was one of those things where, praise God that she's a believer, or else I don't know if she would have taken it well, but she was like, nope, this was God. And so he agreed to heal me from bipolar, and I got off my medications, and I've been more stable than ever, praise God. Once you get the eyes of clarity, you see that God writes little love notes everywhere. God is always speaking to us and telling us that he loves us in the little things or in the big things. When you die and you get to heaven, God's gonna look at you and say, you kept me busy, kid. And I firmly believe that. But I love that, because I know that he loves that I turn to him for everything and anything now. So yeah, it's just so beautiful the way that God has completely transformed my life and my heart.
10 years of sharing the peace of Christ. Shalom World, God's own channel.